Hello, I'm Alastair Cole. I'm Professor of Political Science at Sciences Po in Lyon in France. What is trust? Trust, across the social sciences, trust has long been identified as an essential component of social, economic and political life. But what do we mean by trust? And what do we mean by trust, which is one of the most misunderstood concepts in social science? I think it's best to think of trust as a general term that can be used to describe dynamics occurring at rather different levels of analysis. Interpersonal, social and collective, for example, but also in relation to fundamental qualities such as honesty, benevolence and integrity, and in conjunction with important related concepts like confidence, vulnerability, community and transparency. A lot's been written on trust and these related concepts. To understand trust and reach a working definition, we need to understand the phenomena, it seems to me, in relation to four criteria. Its status as a relationship first, second, the distinct levels of analysis it covers, third, its core properties, and finally, its broader role in governmental legitimacy. First, trust is defined as an analysis of a relationship between a subject, one who trusts, and an object, one who is trusted. So Rousseau and his colleagues define trust as a psychological state comprising the intention to accept vulnerability based on positive expectations of the intentions or behaviour of another. This rather narrow definition has given rise to attempts to provide broader understandings. And we might take one of those many definitions, that of Sonia Zmerli and Kenneth Newton, who identify three forms of trust. They talk about particular social trust, which involves us, those we know personally, family, friends or work colleagues. General social trust, which is the trust placed in unknown others. And finally, political trust, which they define as trust either in particular politicians or trust in the main institutions of government and public life. It follows logically that trust refers to distinct levels of analysis: interpersonal, referring to direct relationships between individuals; social or collective trust, being one level removed, generally referring to relationships within civil society; political, institutional or public trust, referring mainly to trust in government and to the mode of governmental communication. Now, trust in government and public trust were especially important during the COVID pandemic because they affected people's judgments about the risks and they influenced individual behaviour, such as whether to get vaccinated or not. And I think we deduce from this that there's a close proximity between trust and government capacity. Are citizens confident that governments will act in their interests, or indeed that they have the capacity to solve policy problems? Thirdly, trust must be understood in terms of properties such as sincerity, honesty, benevolence, competence. These are individual qualities, but by extension they can also be extended to the public sphere. Fourth, from these examples we see that trust performs a key role not just in relationship between the individual citizen and the state, but also within the context of civil society and the increasingly complex relations that characterise contemporary governance. Now, there is an argument, of course, that society cannot function effectively without a measure of diffuse or what I call thin trust. Since the 1990s, however, as Newton notes in particular, there's been an explosion of interest in the concept of trust. But this has been above all driven by its perceived decline, and there's a clear link here to COVID-19. A lot of the discussion was about the challenges the COVID-19 pandemic represented because of a lack of trust in key areas. Thank you.